A while back, a user by the name of Eckharts Ladder made a video entitled, "What if Anakin replaced the Master Chief? Could he survive Halo?" And in his video, he basically said that Anakin dies in the library or at 343 Guilty Spark because he basically wears himself out and gets tired from swatting away infection forms all day, and eventually he gets tired and a rocket flood just blows him up, or an assault rifle flood shreds him to pieces. Now, I feel as though he sort of didn't give Anakin enough credit, so in this video I'm going to explain why it is I think that Anakin actually would survive Halo, why he would dominate it, and why he would do so handily. But let's go to the Anakin respect thread to get a little bit of background information on Anakin. His telekinesis is very powerful. He can lift heavy objects. Right here, when he's just a Padawan, he's got to concentrate, but he can lift up a very heavy Conqueror-class dreadnought and basically hold it in position to use it as a shield to intercept missiles. If he can do that, there's no reason why he couldn't flip over a Wraith or something like that. Let's continue down here. He's throwing like a giant piece of debris or an escape pod at this giant droid and blowing it into pieces. Now, this right here is why I think he survives the flood, because he doesn't need to use his lightsaber and swat at the flood all day long. He can just pick up a weapons crate or some other random debris in the room with his telekinesis and use it as a battering ram and basically just crush the flood with it. He could literally pick up multiple objects and throw them around the room. Right here, you see that Dirge is in an escape pod, and Anakin is using his telekinesis to direct that escape pod toward the nearest star. So Anakin's telekinesis is so powerful, I don't think he's going to have a lot of problems dealing with the Flood. In fact, they will probably be his easiest opponent. But enough about that. Let's get into a level-by-level analysis of why Anakin wins. Let's start with level 1, Pillar of Autumn. Anakin pretty much breezes through this. He's faster than any of the enemies that the Covenant could throw at him, and he could probably jump out of the way of a plasma grenade explosion and deflect all of the plasma weaponry back at the Covenant, because remember, his lightsaber is a plasma-based weapon with an electromagnetic force field around it, so there's no reason why he should struggle with anything that's thrown at him at the Pillar of Autumn. He safely makes it to the lifeboat and ends the level. Now let's start with level 2, Halo. Remember, Anakin is the galaxy's best pilot, and he has a great enthusiasm for aerial combat. So I believe at the start of the mission, Anakin would hijack either that first Spirit dropship or one of those first Banshees that you find in the level. He would probably take that and finish the rest of the mission from the air. So again, Halo, not a problem for him whatsoever. Now we get to Truth and Reconciliation, the level where you have all of the different hangar fights, you're fighting in the cliffs. Anakin, of course, would not want to use the sniper rifle because as a Jedi, he's more trained to use the sword, but the main difference here is when Anakin gets to this main hangar room with all the different levels, instead of him fighting the Covenant meticulously from room to room, slowly making his way up, remember, he's a Jedi. He can just use the Force and super jump all the way up to the 3rd level and rescue the captain right away with no problems whatsoever. In fact, it might actually be Anakin that pilots the Spirit dropship out of there instead of Captain Keyes, but that's not really important. The fact of the matter is, he beats this level with no issues. Now let's get to the Silent Cartographer. This is where things actually start to get fun for Anakin, for one main reason. This level is full of a bunch of cliffs and overhangs and chasms and pits. There are tons of places where he could easily force push an enemy off the cliff and make them fall to their death. In fact, he could pretty much clear this entire level with nothing but force pushes. Again, a piece of cake. Now we get to Assault in the Control Room, and this is where things get a little more technical. If you remember when you played through Assault in the Control Room, first you land on the platform, you fight your way through a few rooms, and then you get to that first bridge where you see the Banshee attacking Fireteam Zulu's Pelican. This is where things make a major turn for Anakin. Anakin does not need to fight the rest of this level from the ground. Remember, he, like the Master Chief, has the ability to hijack piloted vehicles from midair. Remember in Attack of the Clones when Anakin jumped out of that speeder and was free floating through midair, looking for the other speeder that he wanted to take over that Zam Wesell was driving? There's no reason why, in the level Assault on the Control Room, he couldn't just leap in midair and hijack that first Banshee off the bridge, making him able to finish the entire level from midair and not have to touch the ground once. That would actually make Assault on the Control Room a piece of cake for Anakin. He clears this level handily. Now let's get 343 Guilty Spark. Unlike Eckharts Ladder, I do not believe that Anakin is stupid enough to waste his time slicing through each infection form one by one the most tedious way possible and tiring himself out. What I think Anakin would do is just send out powerful force waves which would crush all of the infection forms. Or, since the Flood have pretty much destroyed the architecture of this level, there is enough concrete slabs, broken shards of glass, pieces of blast doors, weapon crates the Covenant left around. There is enough debris in this level that Anakin could easily pick it up and basically start hurling it around the room, making almost like a tornado of debris and using it to crush the infection forms. That strategy would actually kill the combat forms too because their flesh is kind of spongy. So I think that he clears this level with no problems whatsoever. Now let's get into the library, which Anakin actually already did in Star Wars. I'm just kidding. Let's actually get to the real library from Halo. In order to understand why this level would be so easy for Anakin, we first need to understand some of Anakin's abilities. If you go back to Revenge of the Sith, where you see Anakin fighting Obi-Wan, notice he's riding a droid. He chooses to ride a mining droid towards Obi-Wan to continue to fight him. Is there any reason why he couldn't do that here in the library? Instead of going the slow way like Master Chief did, he would just jump on top of a drone and use his telekinesis to force it to float up to the index and just grab it and be done with the level. He would finish in enough time that he wouldn't have any time to inhale any spores or have a carrier form explode him off the level. He would just finish it quickly by jumping on top of one of the Sentinel drones and basically just floating all the way up to the top, ending the level handily. When we get back to 2 Betrayals, this level is actually also fairly easy for Anakin for 2 main reasons. Number 1, the Flood and Covenant are fighting each other, so the aggro is not on him right now. That would basically allow him to use his Jedi super speed to run past everything without being noticed. When he gets to the phase pulse generators, he doesn't need to use his Mjolnir suit, of course because he doesn't have one. His lightsaber is an electromagnetic weapon. There's no reason why he couldn't just use his lightsaber to slice through the carrier wave of the phase pulse generator and disable it, given that, again, he holds an electromagnetic weapon in his hands at all times. I do still think that Cortana would be able to teleport him, because remember, Guilty Spark was able to teleport Staff Sergeant Mabuto, despite the fact that he didn't have any armor, so I think that Anakin could be teleported as well. And even if he can't, he could just grab a Banshee and do it the long way. Either way, 343 Guilty Spark is not going to be able to stop Anakin from finishing 2 Betrayals. He wins this level as well. Now, when we get back to the Truth and Reconciliation for the second time, except on this time it's the level keys, let me just explain to you that he literally finishes this level in 30 seconds. Do you remember at the beginning of the level where you're looking through the grate and the Captain Keyes says, "Chief, don't be a fool, leave me"? Remember, the lightsaber is a plasma torch as well. Why couldn't Anakin just stick his lightsaber in the grate and slice open the grate and jump through and get to the captain without having to fight any of the troops on the ground? You recall in The Phantom Menace where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan used their lightsabers to cut through blast doors. Why couldn't Anakin just cut through that grate and get to the captain directly without having to do all that extra fighting? So again, this is only a 30-second level for Anakin. This one is even more of a piece of cake. Now when we get back to the Maw, the positive change here is that Anakin can save Foehammer. Again, he could probably jump in her Pelican in midair and help steer it to safety, or he could use the Force to destroy the Banshees that are attacking it, or if any of that doesn't work, he can hijack one of the Banshees and use that to fly to the longsword. Boom, he ends the level. Anakin crushes Halo. I don't see a reason to think otherwise. Let me know if you want me to do part 2 of Halo 2 and Halo 3 and so on and so forth.